Welcome, everybody, to our series of author success stories of authors who've used our training and seeing their books, their stories, how they came to write the books, how they used our marketing techniques. And today we have Stephanie Ewing, best known for her best-selling book, The Shower Habit, which I see all the time on Amazon still years later. And I still remember when she first came in our Facebook group and we worked on publishing that book to a bestseller. Welcome, Stephanie. It's so great to have you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So, like I said, I remember from our Facebook group when you first came in and we went through all the steps and it was a bestseller. But the amazing thing is it is still a bestseller years later, and we'll go into the marketing points a little bit later. But why don't you share with us the story that got you to this book and how to write it?
I had always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to become an author, but that's a big dream, and I did not have any idea the steps I would need to take to get there. So I went to Amazon and I searched for how to write a book. And one of the books that popped up was a fabulous pink book that said how to write a bestseller in 30 days. And that book was the one that really allowed me to follow the steps and make my dream a reality. I had recently gone through breast cancer. I was raising two children. I was working full time, and that book still walked me through the steps. And like you said, I wrote a book. It is a bestseller, and it's still one or two in a lot of categories today.
Yeah, I see it all the time, and that's really amazing. And we'll go into how that all happened, but you have a very moving story that actually got you to write this particular book and how you came to the shower habit. Please share that with us. You alluded already to the breast cancer story.
Yeah. Yes. So going through breast cancer, prior to breast cancer, I turned 40 and decided that I was going to run a half marathon. So I got in shape, I was feeling great, and I ran a half marathon. And I decided, well, that was a great experience. I should do that again. So I was actually training to run another half marathon, and I had my first mammogram, and it was breast cancer. I like to say I had only one mammogram and then got rid of them. But I I really went through a pretty dark time after that. I had chemotherapy, and so I was bald. I had no immune system. I was out of shape, and I was really struggling to get my energy back and my confidence. And this this shower habit kind of was a process that I worked through and was jotting notes for myself that I found things that worked for me. And then I read your book, and it just kind of struck me that maybe other people are struggling, maybe other people are going through a dark time and they're not sure where to start. And that's kind of where the shower habit was born.
Yeah, and I read just this morning, I went to your Facebook and I saw this beautiful review. This is my third habit book. I finished the shower habit and the sleep habit. I was telling my therapist all about them, and she's buying them to read so that she can recommend them to her clients and so on and so forth. And that's just wonderful. And I remember I also interviewed you for my book, Share Your Awesome, and you shared a story there of someone who was in deep depression and couldn't even function at all and started reading a book, and it gave them the help they needed, the steps to move forward and get their life back. And you probably have a few other stories if you want to share one or two and how that made you feel. It's an amazing thing to be able to help people.
In my book, I referenced that I hope the book feels like a gentle nudge and not a kick in the butt. Um, my my friend has a quote in her office, and it says, "A kick in the butt is a step forward." And while I agree with that, I was really trying to go more for a gentle, supportive, encouraging way that it doesn't take you being in great shape. It doesn't take any special equipment. It's just a few simple steps that you can do before you leave your bathroom every morning that can really set you up for a successful and positive day.
Yeah, and coming also, I think that's also partly why the book was successful, aside from some other things we're going into in a moment. It comes from a real experience. You didn't just make this up. You didn't just research, the best habit tips on Google and you put a book together, which is what a lot of people do. You came to this yourself through a harrowing experience of losing your strength and having to basically rebuild your life, right? And coming up with this organically, you got into this whole shower habit. It was not just a clever title, it's something you really did. And I think that's also why it resonates with people who are going through a rough time. and it's credible. And I think that's one of the main factors why that book was so successful. Would you agree?
Yes, I think it's kind of why I found your book so powerful. You kind of teach us through the book how we can determine if who we're listening to has actually walked the walk and talked the talk,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to see that so many of your pink books are all over Amazon, they're all over the charts. Knowing that you've done this, it's not just what you think will work. I think that allowed me to have the confidence to think, okay, I can take my experience and show people what's worked for me, and hopefully have that same result.
Yeah, and also I think in some cases what you went through is really kind of brutal, right? And you said it was a very aggressive form of breast cancer. And it might also put other people's lives into perspective where they even say, you know, my life isn't maybe that bad, right? I have problems, but if she can do it with that diagnosis, then I certainly can do it with whatever I have in my life. And I would think that's also a factor where you really, it puts things into perspective, right? And I can do this, she can do it, and I can do it too, right?
I think that's so true. We see so many people that have overcome really hard things, but they seemed pretty spectacular to begin with. And I think I'm just your average mom, and I was living my life, and bam, breast cancer hit. And like you said, it was aggressive. I had to do the chemotherapy. So
Mm.
I was bald. I like to say I had two good eyelashes left.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
I religiously put mascara on those two good eyelashes.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
really admirable to get through that and survive it, and so many don't. And it's really incredibly encouraging, I would say, for any of us. We all go through difficult times sometimes. To see that story and see someone can survive it and can come back and live a wonderful, fulfilling life and share something wonderful with the world, share your awesome, right? And do that through the power of books, but also through the power of your example. And I thought that was incredibly moving when I heard that. I didn't even know that initially when you were in the Facebook group. I learned that later when you shared it in my book. And it's just really, really powerful. The other thing I think that was very helpful to make it so successful quickly and stay successful and relevant is, of course, the habit niche is big, right? There's tons and tons of habit books and they will never go out of fashion. But you picked a very cool title. It wasn't even deliberate. You really had the shower habit. You didn't make it up. It came that way. But it's also a cool title. Right? It's curiosity inducing. You want to know what is that? It sounds fun. It sounds easy. It doesn't sound stressful and boring like habits often are. You have to do it. It's sort of, I do this anyway. I can do it. Intrigue and a little bit of humor. And I think for me, at least, if I saw that, I'm not necessarily big on habit books, but the shower habit, that was kind of interesting. I wanted to know what that was about, right? And I think that had a big part in getting people interested initially and getting them in the door. And let's actually have a look at the title and cover so people can see it. So let's have a look. So it's a really good cover, very clear. We can easily see the title, The Shower Habit, and it looks fun. It doesn't look boring. It looks inviting and entertaining. And then The Shower Habit obviously is the main title. And then you have 10 steps, which is always good to have steps. With 10 is almost the maximum number I would take. If it's too many, then people get exhausted, but 10 steps works well. And then you have increase energy, boost confidence, and achieve your goals, which are probably keywords or powerful keywords at the time, search terms that people are searching for. And then the other part that was really good, without waking up earlier, which I think anyone who isn't a morning person will so much relate to, because this is a morning habit, right? And so obviously the shower. And so some people may think, yeah, but I don't want to get up early and I'm already so stressed out, I can't do this. But without waking up earlier is very powerful and inducing to people, now I can do this. So this is a classic technique for titles, the without overcoming objections right away.
Definitely. And I took that tip straight from your book. I am a self-help book junkie. I love them, but there's no way I'm getting up at 5 a.m. and acting like a normal human. I need a little more sleep than that. So really having a habit that I can do quickly without any extra equipment, and it's going to give me the boost I need. That's really what I needed. And I think that's what I'm able to deliver.
Yeah, and I think you probably went with your own experience. Like, what are the objections you would have, right? You're not a morning person necessarily. We're not for 5 a.m. kind of morning person. So you picked up, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. And it also makes it easy and manageable and doable.
Definitely. I even hesitated with the 10 steps. I think I tried to include things that had a lot of research behind them. One of the things that often gets overlooked in a book is brushing your teeth. And
Mm,
especially with someone who's experiencing depression, that type of basic self-care can fall off the table. So
mm.
just knowing that if you get that accomplished, good job, pat yourself on the back because you checked something off the list.
Yeah, and I think coming from where you came from in that state where you were probably incredibly weak physically, right? You needed something to just hold yourself together and get through it, I would think.
Definitely something, like you said, easy. I can just do it quickly. It doesn't take a lot of time. And I really hoped that that experience that I had would help others.
Yeah, and it did. Like the depressed person, I thought that was really interesting, these little steps, and that you actually researched it too. It wasn't just only your own experience, but also things that have some scientific basis. And then we have another book. You turned it into a series, which is another thing I recommend because then you have read through. You have people like this one person just described. This is my third habit book. They would say it in the reviews. They love one, then they read the whole series. And what you did is the correct way of doing it, writing all these books to the same audience. So it's relevant, different topics around the main topic of improving your life, basically, and your habits. There's another example, Miracle Morning, which is a great series, but he does a lot of like one is for realtors, one is for writers, one is for entrepreneurs. So different people, different audiences. When you're this big, you can't do that. But in your case, you did exactly the right thing. You wrote a series for the same audience. So you would have a lot of read through people, ideally reading all your books, right? So you bring them in once and then they read a number of other books in the series.
Definitely. I took that straight from your book and I thought about the things that I needed help with the most. So waking up in the morning, going to sleep at night, stop procrastinating. Those are my big three. So those were the first three books in the series.
Yeah, and for many people, and this is another title, The Sleep Habit, I think was the second book, right?
Yep.
Simple, natural, and healthy steps to sleep like a baby in just 3 days. And here's another one, in just 3 days. It's another objection that people think it takes a long time, it's confusing. No, you can do this in 3 days, right? And it's natural. That's another thing, not sleeping pills and drugging yourself up, but simple, natural, and healthy. Sleep like a baby in just 3 days. Another great title. And the branding of the cover is again the same. And then we have here the other books. The newest one is The Fasting Habit. So I guess that's what you added recently. And then we have the Success Habit that you mentioned, and procrastination is another big one for many people. So they all go together. Procrastination hacks to create your best life, one micro burst at a time. And again, the micro burst, the micro part of it is again, I can do this, right? It's a tiny little thing. I can manage that. So really good in how you incorporated the titles there and how this all work. Great job.
Thank you. I read your SEO tip that you give people in your book, and that really helped me with choosing titles.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, and it worked, but it all came together. It's like the title, it's the cover, it's having something intriguing to start with. If the first book had been the Success Habit or the Sleep Habit, it may not have taken off as much, but the Shower Habit was unusual enough also with that cover where people were like, what is that? I want to see what that is, right? And then you have them in the door and then they also read the other books. So I'm always warning of clever titles. We want to be careful if they don't have keywords or search terms because then people can't find you. But you had the word habit in there and you had a lot of other keywords in the subtitle and that made up for it. And an intriguing cover that really stood out, still does. And so that worked really well. And I think I saw on your website you also been on summits and podcasts quite a bit to spread the word.
Yes, I've been on a couple podcasts recently. I've been talking to a gentleman who has the Mind Hack podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He does a similar thing, except with each podcast, he gives people kind of tips to help improve their habits and make them more successful. And that was a really fun one to be on.
Wonderful.
Recently, I've been doing a lot of, I guess, media with my book about my breast cancer journey. That one I also helped me with. The title is When Boobs Attack.
Yeah, I saw that. Yes, that was a
Then
great
it's
one as
just,
well.
yeah, a girlfriend's guide to breast cancer. So that's another one that people find as they have brushes with breast cancer, whether it's themselves or their family. And so
Yeah.
that one is another one.
Yeah, and we have it here. the two books there is with a little bit of humor, The Girlfriend's Guide. It's wonderful. And I also wanted to circle back to what this person said in the review about a therapist. So, because that can be another way to reach out when therapists start recommending your book and then they tell their other therapist friends, or you have the whole organization of therapists who find this book helpful and they start recommending it. It becomes recommended reading on someone's website or ideally an institution, right? Then it's sales on autopilot and you're helping people at the same time. So that could be another way to go.
I'm really excited about that prospect. I think your tips in the book about writing short, not using a ton of big words, really make it a conversational tone. I think those two things are key in helping people find the book, like the book, and then recommend it.
Yeah, and I read your book and it's a very conversational style. It's fun to read. It's a little funny, down to earth. Like I always say, talking to a friend over a cup of coffee, right? You have that tone of voice, and that's also really important. Otherwise, it's boring. It's not long. I think it's 80 pages, so it's a quick read, but packed with information and really helpful stuff, and very entertaining to read, which is important. So you're not struggling to get through. It's a lot of big blocks of text. What would you say helped you most becoming a bestseller in the beginning, aside from the things we just mentioned, or if you want to repeat them?
I think for me, it was almost like the recipe that you outlined in your book. There were specific steps I could take, and you didn't leave out any parts. So you helped with the title, you helped how to write the book, then you helped with writing the sales page on Amazon. I think all of those things together. Oh, and that tip about the 99 designs for the cover, I think all of those things together allowed me to have a quality product right from the beginning, which I think a lot of authors struggle with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's important to understand there is a system to this. It's not random. You just put it out and hope for the best. Never happens, never works. But instead, there is a strategy that can work in the power launch. And what would you say helped keep it selling? Did you do a lot of ads or did it just take off on its own?
It was a little of both. It did, like you said, it did have a catchy title and cover, and that really helped. But I continually have some Amazon ads running in the background, and then I really like promos, like a free book see now and then, or just the Kindle Unlimited promos where you can have a free day or a discounted day. Those help as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, wonderful. It's one of the success stories, especially when a book is still selling well after years. The initial burst is great. It's a fun thing when you see yourself as a best-selling author and a bestseller badge, but then to keep it selling well over years, as yours have, especially the first one, that's a wonderful success. So it's exciting to share with other authors to learn from. And if you guys want to learn more, I have 2 free classes underneath, the 100K Bestseller Blueprint and Revive Your Book, depending on which is more relevant to you or both. You can check them out. And I thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on and spending some time with us. And I hope it was really helpful. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.